Right now, without deciding to, your body is doing something almost nothing else alive can do. Across your skin, your forehead, your back, the soles of your feet, the palms of your hands, millions of tiny openings are standing ready. And the moment your temperature climbs a fraction of a degree above where it should be, they begin to leak. Salt water, slowly at first, then faster, until your skin shines and your shirt darkens. We treat it as a flaw, something to mask with sprays and clever fabrics, a thing that happens at the worst possible moment, in an interview, in a crowded room. But sweat is not a flaw. It may be the single strangest and most powerful thing about the human animal. It is the reason your ancestors could walk out of the shade at midday into heat that killed almost everything else and simply keep going. The reason a slow, clawless, fangless primate ended up owning the planet. You are not descended from the strongest hunters. You are descended from the ones who did not overheat. This is the story of the deadliest superpower our species ever evolved, and the price we still pay for it. Start with the number, because the number is genuinely absurd. Depending on who you ask, a human being carries somewhere between 2 and 4 million eccrine sweat glands. Not thousands, millions. They are packed into the skin almost everywhere. Densest on your palms, your soles, your forehead, and each one is a tiny coiled tube reaching down into the living layers of your skin, pushing a thin, slightly salty liquid up onto the surface. No other animal on Earth is built like this. Many mammals have eccrine glands, but in most of them the glands are few, restricted to the pores or barely active. Horses sweat, and we will come back to them. But nothing comes close to what you have. In cooling power spread across the whole body, you are the outlier, as far as we know, the sweatiest creature that has ever lived. And here is the part that surprises people. This system is not a leftover. It is one of the most heavily invested in pieces of equipment in your entire body. And evolution does not invest like that unless something enormous is at stake. Something was. To understand why, you have to picture the moment your ancestors lost their fur. For most of our lineage's history, we were covered. Like every other ape, our ancestors carried a coat of hair that kept them warm at night and shielded their skin from the sun. And then, somewhere in the long African chapter of our story, the timing is still argued over, but likely well over 1 million years ago, that coat thinned until, over most of the body, it effectively vanished. Think about how strange that is. Fur is protection. Fur is insulation. Losing it means cold nights and sunburn. Evolution does not throw away something that useful unless the trade is worth it. The trade was heat. A furry animal running in the sun is wearing a blanket it cannot take off. Heat builds in the muscles, rises into the blood, and has almost nowhere to go. But a bare-skinned animal with millions of sweat glands has turned its entire surface into a cooling system. And notice what came with the bare skin: heavier pigmentation, protecting the newly exposed body from the equatorial sun. The fur went, the melanin came, and a new kind of animal stepped out of the forest shade into the open grassland, one that could stay out there when everything else had to lie down. Here is what is actually happening when you sweat. And it is worth slowing down for, because it is beautiful physics hiding inside a nuisance. Water is unusually stubborn about turning into vapor. To lift a single gram of it off your skin takes a large amount of energy, and that energy has to come from somewhere. It comes from you, from the heat in your blood, your skin, the muscle underneath. Every drop that evaporates is a parcel of your own excess warmth carried off into the atmosphere. That is the whole trick. Sweat that runs off your chin in a stream does almost nothing for you. Sweat that disappears, that vanishes from your skin as invisible vapor, is doing the work. Which is also why humid air is so punishing. When the air is already saturated, the water on your skin has nowhere to go. It sits there, it drips, and your temperature climbs anyway. And at full tilt, the numbers get serious. A well-adapted human working hard in the heat can pour out well over a liter of sweat an hour, sometimes considerably more. That is your body deliberately throwing away water, the most precious thing in a dry landscape, because staying cool matters more than staying full. Your ancestors evolved a system that would rather spend water than lose the body. Now, put a human beside the animals we usually think of as fast, and the picture flips. Take a dog. A dog cools itself mainly by panting, moving air rapidly over the wet surfaces of the mouth and airways so that moisture evaporates there. But that is a small radiator compared to a whole body of skin, and it has a hard limit. Panting costs effort and competes with breathing hard while running. Anyone who has run with a dog on a hot day has seen the moment it stops and lies down. That is a cooling system reaching its ceiling. Take a horse. Horses genuinely do sweat, unusually well for a mammal. They even produce a soapy protein that helps the fluid spread through the coat and reach the air instead of beading on the hair. But a horse is enormous, and a large body makes a lot of heat, while having relatively less surface to shed it from. Horses lose water at rates that would empty a human in hours, and horses, unlike us, cannot carry their own water. Then take almost everything else on the savanna. Antelope, warthog, big cats. Nearly all of them run the same strategy. Sprint, then stop, and wait in shade until the heat bleeds away. You are built for something else entirely. You are slow, laughably slow, over any short distance. But you are the animal that does not have to stop. Which brings us to the strangest hunting technique our species ever invented, and it is one where the weapon is your own skin. The idea is called persistence hunting. You pick a large animal in the hottest part of the day. You do not ambush it. You do not outrun it. You simply make it move. It bolts and disappears. It is far faster than you. So you walk and jog after it, reading tracks. Minutes later, you find it again, standing in shade, and you make it run again. Each sprint dumps heat into that animal's body. Each pause is its only way to get rid of it. And you keep taking the pauses away. Meanwhile, you are sweating, and the sweat is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Your body is a moving radiator. Your core temperature stays inside the narrow band where a body still works. The animal's does not. Eventually its muscles fail and it simply stops. Hunters describe walking up to an exhausted animal that can no longer move away. No claws needed, no great strength, just legs, patience, tracking skill, and 2 to 4 million sweat glands. Everything about your body fits this. The long legs, the springy tendon in your heel that stores and returns energy with every stride, the ligament along the back of your neck, which most apes lack, that keeps your head level while you run. These are not the specifications of a sprinter. They are the specifications of something that can move, in the heat, for hours. Now, an honest pause, because this is where the story is often told with more confidence than the evidence deserves. Persistence hunting is real. It has been documented in the modern world, most famously among hunters in the Kalahari. The physiology is not in doubt. Humans genuinely are extraordinary endurance animals, and animals genuinely do collapse from heat when they cannot rest. What is disputed is how central it ever was. Some researchers argue that endurance running was a major driver of our body plan, shaping us from roughly 2 million years ago onward. Others push back hard. Documented cases are rare. The technique demands very particular conditions: open ground, high heat, good tracking, the right prey, and most hunting by most human groups has been done with ambush, traps, and projectiles, rather than by running an animal into the ground. Both sides can be right in a useful way. Even if persistence hunting was occasional rather than routine, the ability to move long distances in daytime heat is something else, and that is not in dispute. Walking further than anything else can walk. Carrying meat home across open country in the afternoon. Reaching a carcass at midday while the lions lie in shade. That is the real prize. Not one dramatic chase, but a permanent, everyday license to be out in the heat when the rest of the ecosystem has shut down. Sweat did not just make us hunters, it gave us the middle of the day. There is a second reason this mattered so much, and it sits directly behind your eyes. Your brain is about 2% of your body weight and burns close to 1/5 of your energy. It is the most expensive organ you own, and one of the most fragile when it comes to heat. In severe heat illness, people become disoriented and stop making sense long before anything else visibly fails. That is the brain telling you it is cooking. So consider the bind our ancestors were in. They were evolving a bigger and bigger brain, one that generates its own heat, sits in a bony box, and tolerates almost no margin, while living in one of the hottest landscapes on the planet and crossing it on foot in daylight. You cannot afford a large brain in that world unless you can guarantee cooling. Every extra gram of thinking tissue is another gram of heat with nowhere to go. Sweat made the guarantee. Some researchers argue the veins in your head help steer heat away from the brain specifically. That claim is debated. But the broad point is not. The same species that grew the biggest brain relative to body size also happens to have the most powerful whole-body cooling system in the animal kingdom. Those two facts are not strangers to each other. Your intelligence needed a radiator. Your skin is it. But nothing in evolution comes free. And this superpower has a bill attached to it. Sweat is not pure water. It carries salt, mostly sodium, out with it. Your body claws some of it back as the fluid travels up the duct. And people who work in heat get better at that over weeks. But you still lose it. Work hard for long enough, and you are losing not only water, but the mineral balance that keeps your nerves firing and your muscles contracting. Which means our ancestors did not just need to drink, they needed salt. And in the interior of a continent, salt is not lying around. It is a resource worth walking for, worth trading for, worth fighting over. Some of the oldest trade routes on Earth are salt routes. Some of the earliest taxes ever recorded were salt taxes. There is a straight line from a sweat gland to the economics of an empire. And then there is water itself. A body that can lose over a liter an hour is a body on a clock. Dehydration comes fast, thirst, then fatigue, then a heart working harder to push thickened blood, then the cooling system failing because you cannot sweat what you do not have. So the superpower came with a leash. To be the animal that could go anywhere in the heat, you had to become the animal obsessed with finding water, knowing where the springs were, remembering the dry season water holes, learning to carry liquid in a shell, a gourd, a stitched hide. Half of human ingenuity is downstream of thirst. There is a second kind of sweat, and it is the one you actually worry about. Alongside the millions of eccrine glands doing the cooling, you carry a much smaller set of apocrine glands, clustered mainly in the armpits and groin, switching on around puberty. What they release is not about temperature. It is a thicker, richer secretion, and it is almost odorless when it leaves you. The smell comes later, and it does not come from you. It comes from the bacteria living on your skin, which feed on that secretion and break it into the compounds we recognize as body odor. Your armpit is quite literally an ecosystem, and what you smell like depends partly on who lives there. Why would evolution keep this? The honest answer is that we are not certain. The leading suggestions are social, scent as a signal of identity, of readiness to mate, of stress, of group membership. Other mammals use scent constantly to say who they are, and there is no reason our ancestors would have been an exception. So there are two sweats on you at once. One kept your ancestors alive under the sun, the other told the people around them who they were. Which brings us to the strangest chapter of all. The one where the species that survived because of sweat decided it was disgusting. For almost all of human history, smelling like a working body was simply what a body smelled like. The modern deodorant industry is barely more than a century old. It began as an awkward curiosity people were embarrassed to be seen buying, and was built into a necessity largely by advertising that taught them to be ashamed of something universal. And it goes further than smell. Antiperspirants do not mask sweat, they block it, plugging the ducts so the fluid never reaches the surface. We have engineered a way to switch off, in one specific place, the exact mechanism that let our ancestors own the daylight. Meanwhile, at the same moment, we pay money to sweat on purpose. The sauna, the steam room, whole cultures. In Finland, in Turkey, in Korea, in the sweat lodges of North America, built around sitting in deliberate heat until the body pours. People describe it as cleansing, as clarifying, as something close to sacred. The claims often run ahead of the evidence. The case for detoxification in particular is thin, since your liver and kidneys do that job. But the feeling is real and old. And in one place, the old system is still being run at its absolute limit, deliberately. In public, with a stopwatch. Watch the end of a marathon, or an ultramarathon crossing a desert. What you are actually watching is a thermal management problem. Elite endurance athletes are, in a real sense, professional coolers. Their bodies have been trained over years to start sweating earlier, to sweat more, and to lose less salt while doing it. The same adaptation any laborer working outdoors develops over a few weeks, pushed to its extreme. The whole science of modern endurance sport is soaked in this. Ice vests before the start, sweat rate measured, liter by liter, so a runner knows exactly how much to replace. Sodium counted in milligrams. Races move to the middle of the night, when the heat crosses the line where the cooling system can no longer keep up. And every so often, somebody crosses that line anyway, and collapses. Heat stroke remains a medical emergency, not an inconvenience. That is the truth. This whole story keeps circling. Our cooling system is extraordinary, and it is not infinite. It bought our ancestors the daylight. It never bought them immunity. Which is worth remembering as the world gets hotter. The oldest survival technology we own, bare skin, salt water, and the patience to keep walking, is the one we are about to need again. So think about it again, the next time it happens. The next time you feel that first prickle across your forehead on a summer street. The next time you wipe your palms before you shake someone's hand. What you are feeling is not a malfunction. It is the oldest surviving piece of equipment in your body, still doing exactly what it was built for, in a world it was never designed for. That damp shine on your skin is why your ancestors could stand up in the middle of an African afternoon and walk into heat that emptied the landscape of everything else. It is why a slow animal with soft hands could follow a herd for days, cross a continent, and then cross all of them. It is why the most expensive brain in the animal kingdom never cooked inside its own skull. You come from the ones who did not lie down in the shade. You come from the ones who kept moving while the world waited for evening. That is not a flaw you are hiding under a shirt. That is a 2 million-year-old inheritance, still running, still quietly keeping you alive. This is the story of how a wet skin conquered a planet. Sit down at the oldest campfire on Earth, beside the ones who came before, and follow along. This is Emberkind.